Games.
Hello guys, I'm CBMF Productions and welcome back to Nick Games Retrospective. Today I'm going to be looking at something. Out of all the Nick games in this series, this is the grand day that kicked off the era of Nick games being 3D, along with Flying Dutchman because these were made by some developers, and that game is Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. This game has quite a crazy history. So starting off, let's talk about the one and only BigSky Interactive. So I previously discussed them in my Revenge of the Flying Dutchman review, but I want to talk about them again because there's a lot more to BigSky's history than I realized. I'm going to do an overview of what happened with BigSky, but if you want a way more in-depth detail of the story with actual interviews of the people who worked at BigSky, there's this amazing video by the YouTuber Who Needs Normal that leads to my recommendations after posting my Battle for Bikini Bottom review, and I'm gonna leave that video down in the description because this YouTuber did such an amazing job at making me realize how wrong I was about BigSky's history. So let's just get into the thick of it. So BigSky was once a small little developing studio named Daylight Productions who produced some small little racing games until they were bought by a French developer, Callisto Entertainment. They ended up merging and the American merger later changed its name to also Callisto. A couple years after the partnership, the American and Callisto wanted to change their name to make their company stand out from their French partners and eventually sell on BigSky Interactive. So that's the origin of the company in a very brief description. Again, if you want way more detail on this, watch the BigSky video. So you may be asking, wait, where does my favorite boy genius fit into this? So BigSky struck a deal with THQ to develop two licensed games for Nickelodeon, one being Flying Dutchman and the other being Jimmy Neutron, designed to the 2001 movie of the same name. Things started out pretty normal with THQ, BigSky, and Callisto all working fine together, until things started to go a little haywire. The issues were mainly in the software that BigSky was using to develop both these games back to back, constantly glitching and crashing, and having to call their French partners to fix the broken coding in their software. And it got to the point where the later stages in production, where their software still wasn't working, when BigSky was calling Callisto, they wouldn't even answer. They thought something was actually wrong until they realized that the company took a month off vacation. THQ wasn't much nicer towards them due to the amount of delays BigSky was facing because of Callisto and not liking many of the ideas that BigSky came up with for the games. It got to the point where the CEO of THQ himself went ballistic over the developers over the phone for not getting stuff done in time, because they were a small step on their own basically making both games. After many production issues, both these games finally came out, with this game coming out a couple months before Dutchman in September 2002, nearly a full year after the movie came out. That's how long these games were delayed in production. Jimmy Neutron came out and wasn't much of a splash in sales, nor was it received well for various reasons which we'll get into, but this game nor Flying Dutchman were the reason why BigSky shut down, like I previously heard and thought, due to them actually planning to develop an original third game after finishing these two Nick games. The reason they closed is actually quite interesting. It was actually due to BigSky turning down THQ's offer to partner up with them and being one of their side developers, due to their bad experience with Callisto. So the CEO of THQ blacklisted their name across all the other game studios, so they couldn't find any partners or find to develop more games. So they shut down all the employees and hire-ups went their separate ways. But luckily they're doing fine today. But with all these years later, does this game still hold up? Well, let's get into the game. The game tries to copy certain sections in the overall storyline and structure of the Jimmy Neutron movie. The game starts on Retroland with Jimmy and his peers sneaking out like the film, as Jimmy needs to collect some prizes to look the coolest out of his peers, so he collects the prize by going through a series of unbelievably ridiculous rides. Who lives in a pineapple under the sea? And once Jimmy gets all the prizes, you transition to the next level, set after the parents are taken by aliens, which you wouldn't know because there's no cutscene in between these levels, or barely a reference towards it.
Who would want to kidnap our parents? Aliens? I'll explain it all to you later.
Sit down and shut up! Sit down! Sit down! Sit down!
The second level just consists of Jimmy at his house getting parts for his rocket ship, along with being of aliens who for some reason just stayed on Earth, despite getting what they already needed in the parents, and also Jimmy shrinking down being of ants. Yeah, that's my favorite scene from the movie. After getting all the parts, he and his buddy travel to space to get their parents back. They set up on one planet to rescue some of their missing friends, trapped by creatures including Carl, Cindy, and others. Then Jimmy goes to another planet to do some really shitty parkour and rescue Cindy. Then he gets to the base of the Yokians, the aliens that kidnapped all the parents of Retroville, where Jimmy rescues all the parents that are under the aliens' mind control, and then knocks out whatever in God's name that thing is, by making it peck a couple of the alien guns. And then we get to the final boss battle in the game, where we battle King Yokian, which you can just go up to him, kick him a couple times, and then he just gets defeated. And then Jimmy goes home with all of his friends and family, and that's it. I'm not kidding. It's short. Where do I begin? Okay, let me get this out of the way first. The way that BigSky was treated during production was absolutely terrible, and I genuinely feel sorry they had to experience a level of abuse. But I'm not grading this game on the backstory that happened, I'm judging the product that I paid for, and it's absolutely horrendous. This game is so sloppily executed. Judging from the gameplay alone, it's a game that looks like an early N64 title that just got shelved for several years, and then the developer just plays Jimmy Neutron characters in there. The storiness is non-existent, not even connecting these levels coherently if you haven't seen the movie, because the game surely doesn't give a damn about structuring a story together. The 6 levels we do get in the game after the first couple don't stand out and all blend in with one another. The character models and designs are horrendous along with the voice acting. Every single one of the actors sound like they recorded their lines over the phone, or the developers just put their voice through Google Translate, and the actors that weren't already reprising their roles from the movie sound like interns that don't know how to deliver their lines.
You've made me so mad, I could just boil. Send in the elite guards!
Oh, it looks really spooky in there. I want to go in, but you know how my asthma acts up when I'm scared.
Got more parents to rescue, you know. They had Carl's dad with them. I remember seeing them take your parents there too.
But I could forgive all the terrible voice acting and designs that look unfinished and the faces don't even move when they speak if the gameplay was good. But the controls are horrendous too. Jimmy gets one jump, and his attacks consisting of a kick are terribly timed, and whenever you get a weapon such as a bat, it doesn't make any difference. What makes the crappy stiff controls infinitely worse is the fact that you can't move the camera. Because of this, you can't see where your next move is, or even where to go, especially since there's many moments in the game where if you make a small hole, you immediately fall to your death, and because this game has a dumb life system, and if you don't save, which like Flying Dutchman you have to do it yourself, you will have to restart the entire game if you lose all your lives. But it really isn't that crushing. You can get back to whatever point you were in the game within like 30 minutes, because that's how long the game takes to be completed. Another issue is the music. Like Flying Dutchman, this soundtrack consists of maybe 4 or 5 songs which all sound like stuff you can make in GarageBand within 5 minutes. The game has no difficulty whatsoever, apart from the chest controls not being able to move the camera, that makes it more annoying to control. Once you get them down, the couple of bosses you get, you can defeat in less than 5 minutes. It's really terrible when your final boss is less hard to beat than the crappy missions the game tries to implement. The worst being a section in one of the later levels where Cindy is captured, and you need to throw these balls in a hole to weaken the laser bars, but the game doesn't tell you about where you need to go. So there are extra gates that you don't even see, and you almost have to take a leap of faith to see if there's a path to advance further in the game. The enemies are weak as well. The game mostly consists of alien bodyguards, and by the end you get ones that have spears and that's basically about it. There's no point beating them because they respawn, but then one level for some reason, you have to kill all these aliens that make these platforms appear. So the game breaks its own rules. And not only that, but the game just doesn't feel finished. I kinda got that vibe as soon as I saw the title screen, to the fact that portions of the story cut out, so you just get 6 levels of Jimmy just kicking aliens, collecting teeth, throwing bug worms into whatever that mouth creature is, finding a giant chicken monster that I could have made better in my 6th grade computer science class, and just feel like a giant mess, like the developers just threw every idea they could possibly had just to get the game finished on time. It just doesn't feel like a Jimmy Neutron game. It feels like some empty, uncanny game about a boy. It feels like the creepypasta curse version of a better game. It's an absolute dumpster fire. Overall, Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius, or the Jimmy Neutron movie game if you want to go back to basics, is not good in any sort of way. The game obviously looks and feels incomplete, from the game lacking a lot of the basic necessities that a lot of people take for granted in other games, such as a functioning camera, decent voice acting, and the facial animations, more than 3 songs on the soundtrack that doesn't sound like unused Atari music from the 70s, the lack of a hub world or even a story that skips major beats of the actual movie, it doesn't give you your objectives you need to complete the game, and I had to resort to YouTube walkers to understand what I had to do, and this game is ready to eat for everyone. It's just so bare bones. The atmosphere of Jimmy Neutron just isn't there, and it just feels like some weird amalgamation trying to resemble something close to Jimmy Neutron, but there's no croissants or dads talking about sitting on a banana, just a bunch of crappy content and looking for Carl's glasses multiple times in the game, along with dozens of other recycled objects and elements that are just spread across the game, and just no direction of where to go. At least Flying Dutchman got that right. Apart from taking an hour to complete, which makes it easier to get it over with, there's nothing redeemable in the game, because it can barely function on its own, and every stage looks like it's about to crumble in on itself. Along with the story so bare most and the most basic as you can get, and mind you, it's not like the Jimmy Neutron movies like super hard to decipher like some thought-provoking masterpiece. It's just such a frustrating feat that after all the harshness the game went through to get released, it just came out like such a disaster. Overall, I don't think I need to explain any further why this game falls on its face in every single way imaginable. To me personally, although I'm not that big of a gamer, I can easily say without a doubt that this is the worst game I've ever played, and I don't think anything will beat it. I give Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius an F, a 0.5 out of 10, and a skip recommendation. So that's a Jimmy Neutron movie game, and with that I have covered both games of BigSky's history. It's sad that their legacy was spent on 2 crappy Nick games, but they did pave the way for all the Nick games going forward. It's a shame that BigSky got cut short because they could have made some really cool games if they were treated better, but oh well. It's gonna be an interesting road going forward in this retrospective, but I'll save that for next time. Anyways, I'm CBMF Productions, and I'll see you guys on the next level.